have the title, they have the career, the job, the commission, the status, but they don't have themselves. They have no clue who they are. Even though you were there, even though you drove me to practice, I never had to worry about meals. I wanted to hear you say, I love you. I wanted to hear you say, I'm sorry. I wanted you to have a physical touch relationship where I can hug you and not just be scared of you. What is hidden in the Father appears in the Son, and we repeat patterns until we don't.
Welcome to Wired and Worthy, the podcast for people who feel everything deeply, think about everything constantly, and have spent way too long believing that they were too much. I'm Dr. Amelia Kelley, your host, someone who believes the way you're wired was never the problem. You belong here exactly as you are. Because remember, you may be wired differently, but you are worthy always. Let's get into it. Yeah, I'm super excited to have you today, Alex. I vicariously met you through my friend Jess, who has been on the podcast before. And I find it so cool and interesting that you guys connected kind of over feminism.
Yes, and anti-patriarchy. Yeah, very much.
Yes. And to have you as a man connecting with my girlfriend Jess over that, I was like, you seem like an interesting person. I have to have you on Wired and Worthy.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Really appreciate you being here.
So can you tell anyone listening a little bit about what you are most passionate about? How about we start with that?
Yeah, I think it's important to start with where I came from and how I got into what I'm most passionate about.
Yeah, let's do it.
I grew up classic jock, played football, baseball, wrestling. I was never exposed to like jock mentality as far as like anti-women or like the boys club. Luckily, I had really good coaches that instilled what I learned to be really strong character and values. But a lot of my performance in life was tied to me performing. And whether I knew it or not, in order for me to appreciate and being seen as someone that had worth was tied to being an achiever, was tied to someone who was a performer, was tied to someone who was good at things, not just an innate value of being alive and being here is where I get my worth from. I say that all of that to be said is after I got hurt playing college football, I went into a career in sales where I could be visibly successful and have more of that.
Yeah.
Right? Where my worth was tied to my performance and my success in this largely external validations of success that relied on people around me telling me that I was successful. Where I'm at now is helping men and myself as I grow through my journey, recognizing that you are so much more than just an external measure of success. You are so much more than the performer, than the breadwinner, than the successful person that you are taught to be. And that is what I'm passionate about, is helping men who are disconnected, who have their whole entire life figured out. They have the title, they have the career, the job, the commission, the status, but they don't have themselves. They have no clue who they are. They're disconnected from their purpose in this planet. They are oftentimes lacking in awareness, happiness, and unable to find love in themselves and their relationships with others because they've spent their entire life focused on how to either people please or find success based off societal measures versus internal measures. So that's really where I live, in where I'm taking my practice, where I'm trying to help others, is slowing down, looking inward, doing the self-inquiry, doing the self-exploration, and kind of unwiring and unlearning years of conditioning and learnings that they've had up until that point in their life.
So a couple things you said really popped out at me, because as a woman who works with a lot of people women often, who have been chronically masking or people pleasing as well, I'm curious if we could take like a little detour and pause on people pleasing, because I feel like maybe there's a different way people pleasing is showing up in this external validation version of people pleasing with men, as opposed to how it translates into the people pleasing behaviors of women. And the reason I think there might be a comparison we can make and unpack here is because you were talking about the things that you would be rewarded for, like performance and kind of meeting goals, and whether it be on the football field or whether it be, which the injury just shows the impermanence of so much of that.
Totally.
Um, got me thinking too of the things that women are rewarded for, whereas, as in, we are often rewarded for internally performing, like constantly mentally loading, constantly trying to anticipate how other people are feeling and being 10 steps ahead of their feelings. And so it's like we almost get penalized when we as women focus on external performance, but we get rewarded for internal performance. And you're almost saying the opposite. So I'm so intrigued by that.
It's funny, as you're speaking it to me, it's the balance between the divine masculine and the feminine, right? And I think like what I learned is that while I, of course, we all have energetic qualities of both, right? But everything that I had been doing for the however many years of my life was focused solely on my masculinity and focused on my masculine energy without recognizing that I had an entire softer side. I had an entire empathetic, compassionate, inward looking, like you just mentioned, which largely is, I guess, what you would categorize as more of that feminine energy. And I think the opposite is true of what you're saying, where women get penalized for having their masculine energy,
Yeah, like
right?
performing.
Performative, right? Or,
If you're
oh, you're
performing
being
as a
bossy.
woman, you're like, yeah, you're
Yeah.
I got called bossy as a kid, and I look back and I'm like, you know what? I am a boss.
Yeah. Damn straight.
But at the time, it didn't feel good. It felt like something that I needed to button up and hide.
Yeah, and you touched on it. I listened to your pod with Dr. Jess when talking about the patriarchal roles that our society governs us into, and I think that's a lot of where men struggle into cosplaying as a performer. Into, hey, at a very early age, we tell men how, and boys, how they can operate. They can be angry, they can be violent, right? We're reading The Will to Change by Bell Hooks, so this is very much front of brain for me right now. But anything other than that, that's unacceptable. So we teach boys at a young age to compartmentalize their being and to put themselves into this box, and they never have access to these other areas. So they live their entire life. And you can talk about how you get approval from your parents. You can talk about how you get approval as part of that package. Next thing you know, that role that you learned at an early age is just how you are for the rest of your life. And I think that's where a lot of that unlearning comes. And it's very difficult. It takes a lot of work. But that's where I think more people need to do the work of, women and men specifically, is where I live, is in the man space of things. Not the manosphere, just for the record, but on the man side of
Disclaimer:
things.
we're
Yeah.
not aligning with. Actually, okay, you just like opened up a really crazy thing. So
Yes.
I did not watch that. Did you watch? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I couldn't finish it. I watched half of it with my wife, and we couldn't finish it.
Okay, so what is the main premise of it? Because I don't know if
Basically,
like sensitive people watching or listening to this have watched it either.
if you don't. If you haven't, don't. The premise is a.
I love that you can barely wrap your mind around it.
Yeah, because it's like trying to explain astrophysics, right? It's like, it's so far fetched from where I'm at. Actually, I could probably explain astrophysics better. It's a women hating club, right? It's women have no value. No one's coming to save you. The system is built to punish you. You have to save yourself. You're a bootstrap, picking you up by your bootstraps type of guy. Women have no value. Men are inherently better because we're men. It's a lot of uninitiated boys that just have the claim of a man as they've grown. They've not had an opportunity to realize that the way they walk through life impacts other people. But what's ironic is the documentary that I watched half of is, they're so anti-women, and yet all their actions do extend their ability to be with women. It's like it was an interesting observation as I'm watching it. But yeah, the manosphere, it used to be like this subculture that was in like these chat forums, these little back rooms of the internet. But then something happened in 2016, which now all these boys became, I guess, emboldened to speak louder because they saw other leaders in the world saying similar things. And now it's becoming this like not a subculture anymore. It's not permeated through all of society to the point where Louis Theroux had a documentary. Um, I haven't watched the second half of it. Couldn't bring myself to watch it just because I was like, that's so out of my realm of my viewpoints of the world. It was a detriment to myself to actually
Right.
watch it, to be completely candid with you.
Yeah, no, I like that you paid attention to your needs. And
Yeah.
actually, so that could bring up an interesting thought about what you were initially saying. What I think I've heard you say kind of like on your page is like, what if I always say, and I'm actually curious if what your thoughts on this are. I think it's kind of ridiculous that we've like gendered certain emotions.
Yeah.
Like anger is masculine, sadness is feminine, joy is feminine. I don't know. Apathy is masculine. I don't know. Like kind of disengagement and like detachment is masculine. How do you like? Do you think? Because you're saying like that you really believe in this divine feminine and masculine, but do you think that they're connected to emotions, or can we agree that emotions are genderless?
Whew.
Did I just make your brain explode a little?
You did, but I think it's a great question. And you always say that when you need to think about what your response is going to be. You say, "Great
Yeah, right.
question,"
Keep
right?
saying how good of a
Yeah,
question it is for about
fantastic.
2 more minutes.
I think like I'm wondering if emotions might not be the right term for it because emotions, energy in motion is kind of like the way I look at it. So it does go back to like the balance between the masculine and the feminine. To me, masculine energy is directive, it's logical, it's analytical, it's straight line, it's thinking, it's problem fix oriented, right? Whereas the feminine energy is more free flowing, like the ocean, loving, beautiful, joyous, expressive, so again, I think that goes back together. I don't know if emotions are inherently one or the other. I think that's a lot of the constructs that we've attached the label to say angry is masculine, emotional or what have you is feminine. That's a really good question. I'm going to say it again because I have to think on it live in the moment. What do you think? Like, what's your stance on that?
Yeah, I mean, well, I'm sitting here, you probably saw that look on my face, like, I was like, "Oh gosh." I think in a way it's almost weird to me to I almost feel like we need a different term for divine feminine and divine masculine because it's too close to gender.
Yeah.
Like I like yin and yang better.
I was just as you were saying that, I was like the yin and yang. Yep.
Yeah, because yin is not it doesn't have to be. I think it's connected to people connected to feminine energy, but what if we did just get like more historically
Totally. Eastern
Eastern
philosophy. Yeah, yeah,
Eastern
yeah.
philosophy thing. I wanted to say Eastern European and I couldn't my mouth was like not making the words that I actually should have said, which is Eastern philosophy. So, you're getting me at the tail end of like 6 appointments,
Yes.
an
The brain
episode
is
more.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, disclaimer, if you see me in the same shirt for 2 episodes, you know that I had 2
Back
recordings in one day. I've
you
learned
know
2
that
is
I
yeah, 2 is my max though. I've learned that. 3 is too much in one day. I just
I love it.
my brain can't handle it. But um I think maybe I like the idea of ascribing more that yin and yang versus feminine and masculine because I think it still reiterates a problematic way of thinking of like when I assert myself as a businesswoman, I'm in my masculine. What if I
Right.
could say I'm in my yang energy versus because I think it's almost impossible kind of cognitively, at least for me, to separate the two. So yeah, because when you talked about boys, I do think it would be interesting to take this conversation and scoop up our young boys who are, I hope, growing into a bit more informed world. Aside from we were saying the like sub culture you were mentioning,
Yeah.
you have kids. I don't remember if you
I have a
have
3-year-old daughter.
a
Yes.
3-year-old daughter. Okay, so I have both. And it has been really interesting observing my own internal dialogue that happens when I see my son, who is brilliant, being his sensitive self.
Tell me more. Yeah.
Well, so I encourage it. I encourage all the emotions. I would hope. But even though I encourage it, I still find myself pleasantly, but I find myself surprised. For example, people who follow me know about Dorothy, this dog that we just adopted. She's like such a little nut. She's so cute. He is more like sweet and nurturing and babying on her. And it's so interesting that I'm pleasantly surprised, like that I notice it more.
Yeah.
So it's even though externally I'm saying like I believe that both my son and daughter can be equally nurturing and sweet and sensitive, that deep ingrained millennial in me is still surprised a little.
Yeah. It's I mean, Bell Hooks talks about this. Even in like, naturally anti-patriarchal households, there's still patterns and behaviors and viewpoints that we subconsciously project onto the people around us. And you know, it it's a heavy perspective, because I would love for your son to continue with that.
And I hope he does, but I worry about when.
Exactly where I was going
Yes.
next, right?
So
Like
let's go there. The social pressure that's
the
going to come
social
eventually.
pressure. How old is he?
6.
6, right? So,
Such a sweet age.
yeah, and it's. I mean, this. I don't have to say it out loud, but it's probably the next few years where he's going to be exposed to boys that are not like him, right? That
Yeah.
I recognize that there's a difference.
Right.
And it's at that point where it's like this critical rapture of a boy, of whether it's teammates, whether it's older siblings at the households that he goes over to, whether it's other parents, whether it's the movies, the content, the inundation of things that we just have around us that reinforce these roles about how we can operate and how we can feel and express. Yeah, I don't have a fix. That's the thing. I don't have the answer, but I do think it's about having really strong role models and men in positions who embody what we aspire our future generations to look like, not the Andrew Tates, Nick Fuentes, Clavicular, etc., Myron Gaines types of the world. Because it happens at a young age. As soon as we see things that are outside of this box of how we've created this patriarchal construct of men, we say, no, not like that. And I think the thing that I loved to hear, even though you said you were surprised, I love that, because a lot of people get to the position where a man, and say this, your son grows up, he starts to express himself and share about his feelings, and we're like, whoa, hang on.
Simmer down.
Simmer down. We're not a lot like that,
Mm-hmm.
And it's a tough position to be in. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. With your daughter, I'm smiling because I can't help. I wanted to ask you about something really bold that you had done recently.
Yeah.
Something bold you did and also put out publicly that I would expect you got lots of mixed reactions about.
Yes. So for the listeners, the full story is I was out with my daughter. She turns 3 in 2 days. So at the time she was.
Happy birthday to her.
Yes. And we were out, and mom was having some alone time with some of her girlfriends. So it was just daddy-daughter time. And she had to use the restroom. And I first took her to the male restroom. And I walk in there, and there's a man in one stall. And in the other stall, to be fully transparent, there is an incredible amount of. Can I swear on this podcast?
Yes, you can.
There was shit all over the toilet.
Gross.
From front to back, side to side, everywhere. And I said, I'm not taking my daughter in here. Nor am I cleaning
of course
it. It's
not.
disgusting.
That's gross. Yeah.
So I go to the female bathroom, and I knock on the door, and I say, hey, I'm a male. I have my daughter with me. She needs to use the restroom. Nobody was in there. Okay. So I was like, all right, clear. Step one. So I walked in. So my thought process was, I would rather have me be uncomfortable than her be uncomfortable being around a space and dealing with that. So we go in, and we're in the one stall, and then I hear someone walk in as we're in the stall. My
Yikes.
heart sinks. My
You like
heart
lift your
sinks.
feet up.
Yeah.
You're like grasping one
Yeah,
foot on each
exactly.
side of the stall. like
Oh,
like what is it, Mission Impossible
yeah,
style?
exactly. Yeah, I'm like, oh no, because it's uncomfortable for a woman to walk in and hear a male in where she feels that she should feel safe and
I'm
comfortable.
glad you just said that, because when you said you uncomfortable, I thought, oh boy, someone listening is going to go, what about the woman? How about how she
Totally.
feels? Yeah.
Totally. And I will get there
Hmm.
too, because there was some awesome commentary on the post.
Yeah.
So I said, hey, I'm a dad. I'm here with my daughter. She has to use the restroom. She's 3, she's turning 3. We'll, blah, blah, blah. We'll wash our hands and we'll get out of here. So Sophia, that's my daughter. She does her thing in the bathroom. The lady next to us finishes using the restroom. We actually go out together. We wash our hands together at the sink. And she goes, hey, I'm a daddy's girl. I get it. And that was our interaction. She was so approving and thoughtful. So later that night, I'm cooking dinner, and I just happened to whip out my phone and record myself like, hey, question for the girl dads: when you're out in public, where do you take your daughter to? Do you take her to the male's restroom, or do you take her to the female's restroom? And I went to bed. I woke up the next day,
Dun,
like,
dun, dun.
it's up to almost 10 million views now.
Oh my gosh, I did not realize
Yeah,
that. I
I got
saw it way early on.
crazy. Yeah, like 100,000, right? It's got and 300,000 likes and share. It's been great for getting, like my brand out there. Candidly, it's been really helpful. Um, but the responses have been remarkable, because apparently it's a touchy subject. I say that apparently in jest.
Well, yeah, I mean, definitely, I would say kind of the American version of how we see that space. Because I
Yeah,
have to say, having traveled, I'm like, there's plenty of bathrooms that are
totally.
for all genders. It's almost odd in some cultures for
Well,
it to
why
be
don't we have that
divided.
here in the States, right? Like, why don't we have gender neutral bathrooms? More of them. We do have some, but
But it's interesting because it kind of makes me think of how the bathroom has almost been treated as the, like, I don't know, the epicenter
yeah,
of
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 the
of whatever gender. Like, oh, of course the women are going to be in there 10 times longer because they're
right, right,
chatting and
right.
they're sharing lip
Sure.
gloss pre-COVID, and all these things. But to be fair, so we'll go with the American version of the bathroom. So yeah, so what kind of comments stood out to you, and how do you feel about them?
Yeah.
Good and
So
bad, I guess.
totally. Well, first of all, I commented. I was like, "Look, like, I had no clue what this would blow up. This was literally a
Hmm.
random stream of consciousness. Like,
Hmm. As
I didn't
many of
have
your posts are.
as many as they are. Follow
Yeah.
me, Vigilante
Hmm.
Rising. Slow
Hmm.
plug there.
Don't worry, I'm going to let you fully plug all
Okay,
your stuff in at
cool.
the end
Thank
too.
you. And I think it's worthwhile to share. I was like, look, at the end of the day, it's not all men, but it's always the men, right? And like, my job is to protect my daughter. And people talked about, like, how is she not going to be protected if you're with her? And to which I responded with, and where a lot of women also commented, of seeing a male private parts when they're that age can be an experience. Um, there's the mental safety. There's not just the physical safety that you have to be aware of. So from that perspective, there were a lot of comments about being like, "Hey, great job, Dad. I'm a girl dad. I'm a daddy's girl. I wish my dad would have done this. Hey, as a woman, we support you. Hey, as a woman, we support you." Like, literally, go to the post. There's thousands and thousands and thousands of women supporting. And there's also a lot of men that are saying, "Hey, thank you for saying this. I have been in the same predicament, and I've been too scared. I have been too intimidated to do what you did, but you gave me permission, as long as I clearly communicate and over communicate where I am and what I'm doing. I
Right.
feel like this is the best thing to do for my daughter." And then there were the comments of what clearly actually some manosphere bros that are like, blah, blah, blah. You're supposed to keep her safe. Man's place is in the male's restroom. And then there were also some comments of, hey, candidly, I understand where you're coming from, but if I saw my daughter walk out of a bathroom and then I saw you as a full grown male walk out of that bathroom, that would not sit right with me. To which I responded with, yeah, I I totally get
Yeah,
that.
I can
Like,
see
I
that point.
totally get that.
Mhm.
If
Mhm.
I have an 11-year-old daughter that uses the restroom by herself, and here I see a man walking out after her, that would make
Right.
me uncomfortable as well.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound well. First and foremost, you did not add the shit part
I did not
in
know.
your post. I am curious if that had been in your post, if it would have deterred a couple of the naysayers.
Yeah.
But and when you were talking about that, my facial expression was like, yeah, I wouldn't want my kiddo in there either. But it's interesting because I think if we were going to take our original conversation about like expectations around kind of toughness and deal with it and weave it into our conversation around what you did for your daughter, it translates to me in a way in how we sometimes expect dads to parent. In the sense of, and I'm saying hopefully not anymore, but maybe historically, in the sense of wait till your father gets home, like very right, like very black or white, right or wrong, man space or not man space. And I wonder if that's fair, first of all, to men. Like I feel like it takes away, and I know someone listening is like, wait, fair to men? That wasn't where I thought she was going with this. But like, is it fair to men? Because in a way it kind of takes away the full experience of being able to be a parent and connect with your child. I
Yeah.
think it makes it more difficult for fathers to connect with their children. And I think it really ostracizes sensitive men.
Yeah.
I would love to know your thoughts on that and like how that feels as a man parenting, as a sensitive man. I'm guessing you're an HSP.
Yeah. Yeah. I scored highly. Um,
You're an HHSP. Highly, highly sensitive person.
There's like the graph, and then there's me all the way through.
Right. You're actually off the sheet.
I'm an outlier. Yeah. It's an interesting conversation because even in The Will to Change, Bell Hooks talks about that, about how just wait till your father gets home, right? And like we all know
Yes.
the archetype of the angry dad, or the the enforcer dad, so to speak, of someone that comes home and lays the law down. And I feel like in that relationship, the mom actually is supporting that role of that father, of the patriarchal father, to do those things, to say, wait till your father gets home, which then creates him only acting in this certain type of narrow typecaster role of not being able to say, I'm sorry, not being able to say, I love you, not being able to focus on repair. And I think as a well rounded man and a sensitive person that I am, I'm sorry, I love you, and being able to repair things after you've damaged them are extremely important. And to me, I think it does do dads a disservice when we tell them they can only dad in a certain way. I will say I'm 33. I turned 33 this month. It's a millennial. I will say millennials are doing pretty good. From the dads that and again, maybe it's because, hey, it's like I surround myself with people that are similar to myself, but like
Could be. Yeah.
could be, right? So like maybe my view is a little more narrow, but a lot of my friends that are also fathers also are emotionally available and are willing to show up for themselves. I have a guy that I work with. He's got two boys. He's close to 40, but this is a good tangent to what you talked about how dads parent. He's like, look, my dad was available. He was there every single game, baseball games, soccer games, etc. But that emotional connection was not there. And I think that is an opportunity for us as men, the importance of being emotionally available to break the pattern. There's a guy on Instagram, you probably know him, Connor Beaton, Man Talks.
I think maybe.
Great follow. I went to a few of his workshops, and one of my favorite quotes that he shares is, what is hidden in the father appears in the son. And we repeat patterns until we don't. And I think that's like the importance of being emotionally available and recognizing, hey, this is a pattern worth repeating. But also, even though you were there, even though you drove me to practice, I never had to worry about meals, blah, 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 blah. I wanted to hear you say, I love you. I wanted to hear you say, I'm sorry, right? Like I wanted you to have a physical touch relationship where I can hug you and not just be scared of you. And I think that's a really damning part of this patriarchal father, of the punisher, the intimidator, the enforcer, a hard man, right? Not someone that can be soft and say, I love you and hold you when you need him. And I think that's the big miss.
Yeah. Well, you're not wrong. It's not just your microcosm of friends. I mean,
Yeah.
there is research out there showing that millennials are the most engaged parenting generation, both, male and female bodied individuals, moms and dads. We also are some of the most burnt out right
Yeah.
now, which is also why, conversations like this are important, because it's not just like the way that you parent, but it's also the way that you show up for your own sensitivity and your needs. I want to come back to that. I'm going to put a pin over here and just say one thing about what we were saying in relation to the hard patriarchal dad discipline. I think there's another type of kind of typically patriarchal dad, I guess we'll say, that's not hard and disciplined, but it's still a little disengaged.
Avoidant.
Right, a bit more avoidant. Like, they're still very present. They do
Yeah.
the things with you. Like, they might be teaching you how to fish. They might be, showing up to the games, being home for dinner, which is awesome. But they're still not the invitation for an open conversation. And it's interesting because I have a client who is a woman with ADHD who is definitely twice exceptional. She might be listening. Hello to you. I can't say your
Hello.
name, but um the other day, she was talking about how her husband really struggles to connect with her daughters. And I said, okay, can you give me an example? And she said, well, when they're upset, her daughters, like, he'll come and he'll, kind of, sit there and be like, I'm sorry, okay, like, it's going to be okay. And like, what happened? And then I looked at her and I was thinking, well, hold on. You just described him being there for them. But what she was saying was that he wasn't showing up to them the way she does, which is being able to, fully analyze and process and go deep, deep, deep,
Interesting.
deep, deep. And so I asked her, I said, is there any chance that part of the reason he's struggling to connect, because what you just described to me is a dad trying to connect, is because you're doing all of it and not leaving space for him to do it. I challenge my clients a lot, as you can tell. And she had this look of, wow, I had never thought about that. So I actually gave her homework, or life work, as I call it, to go home and ask him, like, do you feel like I give you space to be there for them? Or do you feel like I jump in and try to be there for them to the point where it pulls it away from you? Oh, you are loving this. I can tell from the look on your face.
Yeah, because I'm thinking through the lens of, okay, she can't accept that she's not seeing something in her husband. Is it something that she can't accept in herself? And that's why she's projecting it onto him. I don't know the background. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it's genuinely that she didn't see that the
Yeah.
reason he was struggling, because she's pretty self-aware. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
she doesn't tend to be a projector much,
Okay.
but I think she was steamrolling past him so quickly because her ability to empathize in real time, really quick, was, I mean, hello, ADHD. It's one of the superpowers of ADHD. Get out of our way. When we're empathizing, we can do it like a breakneck speed. But it didn't give the space for him to, and I think they're Gen X. I think they're a little bit older. It didn't give him the space to do it,
Yeah.
if that makes
Well,
sense.
it does, and I mean, this is your line of work, so I don't want to speak
Mhm.
out of turn, but I think about.
Please do. I don't care.
Okay, cool. Like, well, on that note, I think it's very important that, and this is where, like, I will die on this hill or what have you, is like, I do stay in my lane for my coaching clients. I don't go outside the bounds. I don't pretend to have certifications that I don't have. I don't have, I
Yeah,
think,
that's
like, and
good.
that's important, right? But
Yeah.
like, I'm also aware and educated, and I think, like, a lot of men, if you think about, like, the three, I guess, patterns, like, where they that either are dysregulated and where we force them into these, like the first one we talked about, anger, right? Like, it's socially acceptable for men to be angry because we use that as a shield to conceal their true feelings, whether it's like grief or fame or excuse me, fear or shame or what have you.
And they are literally the only ones showing up to anger management groups.
Yes. Yeah.
which we could maybe just instead be calling like emotional processing groups.
Totally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's also important, and maybe what you're getting at too is like the shutdown, and maybe that's what she's seeing, where it's like, hey, I'm overwhelmed. I don't have
Good
the
point.
opportunity, to engage with others because I'm just overwhelmed because I'm not giving the space to do that. And so that might be happening. But then I think what I see a lot is like the distraction aspect where like, hey, like, and we talk about screen time, my phone just went off like 3 times in the last like 30 seconds, but like men are
Research says if
busy.
you point it downward,
Is
your
is that
empathy
a trick
increases.
like this? Yeah.
Yes, your empathy actually increases with it
Really?
pointed downward. So face
Because I'm
down.
not seeing it. Okay.
Exactly.
Just so that everyone sees, this is now face down.
We
Um,
can continue talking.
Perfect. Action. And that also too, as you think about like the male being the performer, the achiever, the breadwinner, he's busy, he's always at work, and typically, and a lot of the guys that I work with, either there's a substance involved a lot as an opportunity to like distract. So I don't know, it
Mm,
sounds more of that middle one, whereas like that shutdown, just because I'm overwhelmed, because she's kind of grabbing or securing a lot of that space right there. So it's like, okay, like I don't feel compelled to jump in because I quite literally like can't.
yeah.
As a
Yeah.
way. Yeah.
Yeah. No, and I could see how it perpetuates this idea
Yeah.
of and then she went on to say something along the lines of like him wanting to do things with their kids that he enjoyed doing. And she was always saying, well, no, you need to line up and do stuff that they enjoy. And I said, well, here's another thing too. Like there's something to be said for being in a space where, and I'm not saying, because she mentioned hiking. I'm saying if one of your kids is deathly afraid of bugs, I don't want you to feel like you're like, you have to go hiking with your dad. But there's something to be said for like allowing him to show them things that he
Yeah.
enjoys and getting them to see him being himself doing something he
Oh,
enjoys.
I really love that last comment. Getting them seeing him be himself.
Mhm.
One, it gives them permission to be themselves.
Totally. Mhm.
Two, they get to see their dad expressing joy and
Yeah.
experiencing joy. And I think that's a lot of things
Mhm.
that men struggle with, especially performers, especially achievers, is everything is
Yeah.
rigorous, it's detailed, it's plain masculine and yang, right? of of
Yeah.
of
You'll
of
never think about that the
I
same
know
way
I'm gonna be
again.
talking to my wife later, like, babe, you'll never guess. But they don't play, they don't experience joy, they don't allow
Yeah.
themselves to like take off their performer hat and just be a human being. And I love what you said about that, and it really struck a chord with me. I When I was a kid, I used to build like little fairy houses and gnome homes at the bases of trees.
Oh, that's cool.
And I told my wife about this, and she's like, I was like, hey, I'm gonna build one today. Like, I'm gonna get some sticks together, whatever. And she's like, you should do it with Sophia. And I was like, yeah, you're right, I should. And
Mhm.
it was like I was 7 years old again. We sat at the base of
Aw.
the tree. I dug a little hole. We took little pieces of rocks and put a little tree, and she loved it.
Or a
Now she's
memory.
3, but like core
Mhm.
memory. And she got to see
Yeah.
me be excited and be me as I am, not just as dad, but just as like a human being experiencing joy. And I thought it was such a beautiful experience for her. And then like I love nature, so like we have like woods behind our house. So anytime there's an owl or a hawk or a
Mhm.
frog or
Where
a
are you
turtle,
located? I don't even
Charlotte,
know.
North Carolina.
Okay, yeah. We have
Yeah.
really awesome owls in our backyard too, so that's what I
Yeah.
was wondering. Yeah.
So now she's like anytime she's like, Dada, there's a frog outside. So I'm like,
Oh.
we're sharing that connection because it's something that's important to me. So I had to comment on that because I thought that was really a profound statement.
Mhm. I love the visual of all that. And that's and I think it kind of points to when we think back to this hyper performance, this kind of like where all the disconnection happens. I don't know if you listened further back. I had an author named Jacob Tobiah. You guys should absolutely read their book
Okay.
for your book club, which you should
Beautiful.
advertise the book club at the end of our chat in a little
Yeah.
bit. Um, but and I'm like, oh, I got you for at least another 5 minutes, but I could chat longer. But they were saying some really scary statistics about loneliness
Yeah.
and men. And the amount of men who don't feel like they could say they have a good friend or that
One
they
in
have a best
six.
friend. 1 in 6. That is terrible.
Yeah. And that's like, if you look at, it's the war on masculinity, it's whatever, right?
Yeah.
Homelessness, addiction rates, men are sexually withdrawing, right? So like they're not engaged, they're not engaged in the community because they're told that they have to operate in this way. So it's easier for them to be online. They don't have friends. I mean, the
Oh, good point.
statistics all support this. So that's where it's not a zero sum game, where it's not a women or a man conversation. And that's where I feel empowered to do the work that I'm doing with men. I'm hosting my first retreat in 2 weeks out
Oh, cool.
in the North Carolina mountains, focused on exactly the conversation, that we're having today. Who are we? Like, how do we unwire years of conditioning? How do we look inward and identify like personal roadmaps for growth and change, while at the same time celebrating who we are, and our own individuality? Because I think that's, I don't know, maybe this is just my own 2 cents, but to me, a lot of like, when you start a growth trajectory, it's like, oh, that past me is like bad. It's like, no, that's still part of who you are,
Right.
right?
Mhm.
You don't need to badmouth your former self. It's how you
Mhm.
got here today. But anyway, I digress.
Mhm.
But yes,
Mhm.
Jacob Tobias, I wrote that down.
Yes, I would highly recommend their book. Incredible. Honestly, if you did do your book club, I bet you they would even come to it.
Cool.
Yeah, very, very cool person. And so, with that in mind, like all the things that we've been able to touch on today, I'm curious if there is someone listening, maybe a man, or maybe someone who loves a man,
Yeah.
or is in close relationship. Maybe it's someone who has been listening to us and thinking, oh, yeah, maybe I've had these kind of boxed in ideals of how I think my partner should be acting, or to man up, or any of that kind of energy. So I'm thinking of like a female listener who might be thinking, oh, maybe I have some growth. And or if we talk to a male listener who's maybe listening thinking, okay, this all sounds really good, you sound really enlightened, like you're doing the work, what do I do? What would you say is, if someone's really uncomfortable getting out of the shell that they've created that has protected them, what are maybe 1 or 2 things that you think would be good first steps, maybe things you help your clients with, your coaching clients,
Yeah.
that isn't going to be so uncomfortable that it's going to make them retreat back?
Yeah. The first thing is seemingly simple, but it's changed my life. It's changed the lives of many people that I know, is the intentional retreat from consumption. And the reason that I say that is we numb, distract, avoid, desensitize how we're actually feeling with content, media, podcasts, no offense, music,
Not this
news,
one, though.
not this one. Um, and we never allow these feelings and thoughts to actually come to the surface and sit with them. And we can't get there if we're constantly consuming. So one of the things that I challenge the guys that I work with is to intentionally retreat from consumption and spend some time, because you're not your thoughts, you are the awareness that which your thoughts pass through. And if you
Right.
can't build that awareness, you can never take ownership of those thoughts in the first place. And that's where things start to change. So that's why my first recommendation would be to intentionally stop doing more and actually start doing less, and spend time in silence, whether you want to do meditation, whether you want to do breath work, whether you want to go for an hour-long walk, and intentionally retreat from consuming and be with yourself. At
Silly
that,
question. Do you think
yeah,
a walk is different than a run? Because with a run, sometimes I feel like the
yes.
energy is very different.
I,
Because I was
I,
curious when you said
yeah.
walk instead of run. Can you say why?
I run without headphones for the same reason as I go walking. But when you're running, you're exerting energy, you're raising your heart rate, right? Like you don't have time necessarily. But when you walk, you're literally like running for your life. Um, when you walk intentionally,
It's so funny we do that. Like we're just running. Like we're not, there's nowhere we're really going. There's nothing
where are we
after us.
going? Yeah,
We're just running.
that's
Just around in circles.
I'm going to run to this place and then I'm going to run back, actually.
That
Too
sounds
funny.
like a plan.
Yeah. It's actually really funny this morning because at the gym, I just did a mile outside and I ran and then I ran back. But the reason why I say walking, because it's forcing you to slow down. And I think
Yeah.
that's like the sister of the retreating from the consumption is like men, performers, busy, hustle, grind, go, go, go. You don't ever have time to sit with yourself and to be with your thoughts and your feelings and
Yeah.
your emotions and how they sit. So that's why I say retreat and slow down
Love
would
that.
be the first two things. And then from
Okay.
there, I mean, I could go on and on about different tactics and things to use, but I think it's about being conscious of these things that are dominating your headspace and asking yourself the most simple but complex questions of, did I ever choose these thoughts? Did I ever choose these belief systems? Why do I think these things? But you can't ever get there if you're
If you're
constantly
running.
ignoring and running and not slowing down. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I love both of those ideas so much because they really, it actually reminds me of today, right before you, I had a session with a client whose husband is in the military, grew up in a very patriarchal home, and he is just now like following her and trying to like change his parenting techniques, but he finds it hard to transition from when he's on base, and it's this very like stern kind of in your face communication to get home to his three neuro, two of them definitely neurodiverse, one of them highly intelligent children, who is also challenging in his own way. And sometimes he'll come home and my client will ask something and he'll say, "Why'd you say," like, it's just very aggressive. Sorry for anyone's ears that I just hurt. Um, and she said that he started doing some digging and he heard on a podcast something that has been helping him. And it reminds me of what you just said, because he said that now, before he comes home, before he enters into the home with the children, he does nothing. So he takes a literal pause break. Like he will sit and do nothing for a moment to actually get back in his body. So for any of you listening who maybe are in a hustle world because of like what you do for a living, because a lot of the jobs are in that kind of energy too that men hold, it's okay to take Alex's advice and just even just sit in your car for a minute and just feel your body in the seat and
So
remind
well said.
yourself, yeah, just remind yourself you're in your body before you open the front door.
And that is one of the strongest held beliefs that I have is men need to drop out of their mind and into their body. We
Mm,
perform such cognitive gymnastics and we live mentally all day long so that when we get home, our shoulders are uptight, our jaw is clenched, our brow is
yeah.
furrowed, our
Yes,
hands
the
are
brow.
tight, right?
I feel like
Yeah,
the
the
brow.
brow.
It's always the
Yeah.
brow.
Always the brow. What is up with the
Yeah.
brow?
I can tell if my husband had a stressful day based
Yeah,
on what's happening up there.
I'm gonna have early creases right here because um, but a lot of men struggle with that big time. That intensity, that feeling, those
hmm
large present things, but they mask because they're up here. So, like you said, this gentleman just sitting in the car for 5 minutes, turn the radio off, put the phone down, set a timer for 5 minutes, and just sit there. Body scan. I mean, there's visualization. There's things you can do once you, I guess past that. But like, just
hmm
wait 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Give your time for yourself so that you can show up fully for your family.
Yeah. And maybe anyone listening could do that at the end of
Yeah,
this.
yeah. Little challenge.
After you tell them where to find you and where to follow you and get all that support from you, maybe go to some of your retreats. Once we're all done here, guys, take a couple minutes, see what happens. So
Beautiful.
with that in mind, Alex, where can they find you and participate in all this really amazing stuff you're starting to build up?
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, on Instagram at vigilante_rising and online at vigilanterising.org is where I have all my information. I'm on Threads as well, vigilante_rising. Get my Substack started as well. And over the next, hopefully, year or so, I will turn this into a full-fledged book called As You Are.
Ooh,
So I'm still in the
cool.
works. Yeah.
Well, you'll have to come back and tell us all about the book. If you want any readers or recommenders for your book, please let
Yes.
me know. But I hope everyone, just had a moment where you felt seen, and or maybe you were challenged. Maybe you walked away thinking, well, I've never thought that way, or maybe I have. Either way, for the sensitive men, for the less sensitive men, for all the men out there and the women who love them, you may be wired differently, but you are worthy always. And thank you for being with us.
Beautiful. Thank you.